Well, after a few failed attempts of putting on a mechanical fuel pump, two bad ones, one right out of the box, the other one failed when I was trying to start the vehicle, I went ahead and picked up this electric fuel pump. It's a universal fuel pump from Holley. It's called the Mighty Mite. So I'm going to go ahead and run this, and this is just going to be a temporary fix for now. Eventually I'll get a whole setup when the engine's rebuilt, but right now I'm going to run this Holley Mighty Mite. Check this out. Pretty cool. So I got to find an ignition wire to tie this to. I also picked up just a universal fuel pump block-off plate as well that I'm going to stick on there. All right, so here we go. I have the block-off plate for the mechanical fuel pump installed. What I ended up doing is I ended up digging in my spare bolts jar, and I used some bolts that were shorter, being that I'm not going to have the meat of a mechanical fuel pump to bolt through. Let's open up this Mighty Mite here. I wanted to show you guys what's in here before I stick it on the car. So basically it'll do 35 gallons per hour from 4 to 7 psi, and it's also good for 300 horsepower according to Holley. So let's get this thing open. All right. So it comes with an inline fuel filter. This is what the unit looks like itself, a little up close here. So this would just screw on the frame, or somewhere where there's a good ground on the body of the car. And then I just got to run this power wire to a powered ignition source. Okay, so it looks like there's going to be a slight change in plans. I was going to mount this electric fuel pump up by the front here, but it actually says in here to mount it between 60 and 120 inches from the fuel tank bottom. So it's going to have to go closer to the back of the car. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and drop the fuel tank, because I know that it's got all kinds of gunk in it. It's got like, if you watch the other video, it's got like a creamy looking white film in it. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the fuel tank. This way I can go ahead and clean it out, and I'll install this fuel pump back there. And we'll run with that. So a little change in plan, so let's get that fuel tank dropped. So here's the fuel tank. So here we've got the straps here, and there's a nut here that needs to come off. On this side here, it's like a wing nut looking thing. I'll bring the camera and show you a quick shot of it, but this nut here should be pretty straightforward to take off. This wing nut thing is probably another story, because I'm going to have to do it by hand, and I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, there's a regular nut there, and there's a goofy looking wing nut thing. That's what the little wing nut looks like. So that's going to just take me a little more time. I'm going to have to do that by hand. And then I'm sure you could see the fuel lines. I'll need to disconnect those. There's also a fuel tank sending unit wire that I need to go in the trunk and disconnect as okay, well. I'm in the trunk right now, and let me lift up the carpet here, and there's a fuel tank sending wire. So I'm gonna see if I can disconnect that. This is where it's going there. And so I can drop that tank. Got this little wing nut thingamajiggy off on one side. These are really cool. I'm gonna try to find a set of these, so when I replace the tank or get the tank put back up. Anyways, got some jack stands here so this doesn't fall on my face. So just getting ready to drop this tank. couple more notches here. I'm just trying to get it far enough where I can use my air ratchet to get this nut down far enough. Then I'm going to stick my air ratchet on there. Okay, there we go. Alright, she looks like she wants to fall now, so I've got the jack stand supporting it. I'm going to look at the fuel filler neck, see what I need to take off there. I got to figure something out with this. I didn't see anything holding up the fuel filler neck, so I think we're probably okay to bring this down. I do have to check the sending wire. I don't want to bust it, but I can at least drop these jack stands down a little bit. Oh yeah, look at that. Interesting. So this just disconnected from the fuel filler neck. That's very interesting. So I don't know what the deal with that is. It's like it just slides in there. So I don't know if there's a gasket or what, but that was very interesting. Because with the Monte Carlo, I think the fuel filler neck was part of the gas tank, if I'm not mistaken, or even if it's another piece, I think it's bolted on. I'm trying to remember. Either way, this is just separated. So I'm going to figure that out. So I'm probably going to need to cut the sending unit wire. I hate to cut stuff, but that's kind of all I got to deal with at the moment. All right, let's look in here. Here's the sending unit wire. So looks like I got some slack. I'm thinking if I drop the tank a little bit, hopefully this wire will drop down with it. We'll find out. Okay. These straps out of here. Get these out of the way. Because what I'm gonna need to do, part of the reason why I needed to get this tank off as well, not just to clean it, but I'm not able to mount that electric fuel pump without the tank out of the way. There's nowhere for me to get a drill to run the self-tapping bolt in for the fuel pump. Okay. All right. Okay. There's definitely some gas in there I could smell. Oh yeah, it is like a gasket. You could see that. So I'm gonna disconnect. There's a line there for the emissions. You know what? This actually makes it pretty easy because to clean the tank out now that I can see right in it. So this is cool. Kind of a small tank. All right. Well, let me get this taken apart. Yeah, it's like a ground. I'm going to swing the camera around because just in case you all are working on an AMC, you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, just so we're on the same page, this is the wire that needs to be disconnected. Right there. It's just above the gas tank. I don't think you could see it with the gas tank installed, but that's it. Looks like it's 5/16. come by hand. Oh boy. I'll try this wrench again. I lost my ratchet. Oh man. Story of my life. I really can't see, but I can feel. Oh man, I better get that ratchet. Okay, so I got the exhaust in the way. There we go. There we go. Just gotta try not to lose it. Perfect. All right. So there goes the gas tank. Let's look inside this thing. Well, I don't think you could see in there, not on camera. It's kind of green and murky looking in there. So I'm going to slosh it around and empty this sucker out and clean it out. Here's where I put the fuel pump. Just right behind the back there. There's a little section of frame there where I was able to mount it. You can see that line, hard line hanging down there. Kind of in the middle of the screen. That is the fuel line incoming. Okay, I have the fuel line hooked up. I just got to stick this thing in the gas can real quick. I've got the gas can hooked up here. Got a little makeshift jump start here to get power to the fuel pump. Now again, this is just temporary. So what I did here, basically on the left that you see on the screen there of the fuel filter, that line is the original hard line. And I stuck a fuel filter right there basically just to bridge the gap. And then I ran a hose up to the top, and I'll show you guys that. Okay, so here's the top here. As you can see, basically just that line is coming up from that fuel filter at the bottom, and that's going to go ahead and pick anything up, any debris or nasty stuff that's in that existing hard line right now. So this is tied to the carburetor, so let's prime that thing up. Okay, you can hear that. Okay, we got fuel up here. Fuel pump's pumping. Let's check it out. All right, let's take a look here.
Just close the needle.
Oh. Got fuel spilling. Where? All right, story of my life. More fuel spraying everywhere.
Can you see what is it?
All right, I got to address this. Okay, so the existing fuel line has got some splits in it. So I'm going to have to replace it. Darn it. Here we go. All right, we got it powered up again. End up putting a new line in. So far, so good. Just letting that fuel pump fill up the fuel lines. We get up to the top.
You got gas on?
You guys are not gonna believe this. I mean, this is totally the story of my life. I used to work for a guy, and back when I was younger, and he used to call me Schlep Rock, you know, from the old Hanna-Barbera cartoons, because he said everything I touched broke and all that stuff, and I just had bad luck, right? So, Roy and I spent a good amount of time trying to get that electric fuel pump to work. Once we patched up that leaking line, I put a new hose in, and then we couldn't get it to build up pressure. I even took the fuel pump down. I jumped it and just stuck it over the gas can to see if it would recirculate. It circulated fine. I put it back up, wired it up again, ran it, and it's not building fuel pressure. You guys missed a funny blooper as well. So, since I couldn't get any pressure to build in on the fuel line and the fuel wasn't going through, I thought, well, maybe the fuel line's clogged. Maybe there's some sludge in there. So what I did is I got my air compressor hose there, and I blew some air through it. And Roy told me too, he's like, hey, just put a little bit of air. So, I hit that thing full blast, and it went boom! And basically, the fuel filter exploded into a million pieces. So, note to all those out there, don't blow 100 psi of air into your carbureted fuel line. All right, I finally got the fuel pump pumping fuel. So that electric fuel pump that I got was not working. I had to send it back to Holly and I talked to their tech support for a while, and they were scratching their head, and they offered to send a new one out. And thank you, Holly, for that. You know, I think they were a little skeptical at first, but I told them, hey, I tried several things to try to get that thing to push fuel. I mean, I even got in the other end and tried to blow to help prime the line, and no luck. So now it's working, so let's start this up. Alright, so this is the most this car's ever ran. So I'm going to take the camera around so we can check it out. Not showing any oil pressure. That's interesting. I'm going to probably turn it off. You can hear that oil pump. I'm sorry. You can hear the Holley fuel pump, the little Mighty Mite cranking there. So it's still doing its thing. So let me come around. So I'm pretty sure this thing is moving oil in the engine, but again, I'm probably going to hook up a manual gauge just to check it out, just to confirm that everything is all right. But again, this is probably almost as long as I've ran it since I've had the car. All right. Let me get this fuel pump plugged in here real quick. Got my makeshift power line. Let's get this thing started here. We'll look at that oil pressure. off the water neck. Okay, we've got problems. We've got leaks somewhere else in the coolant system, and there's oil all under the car. Check that out. Huge puddle of oil. I don't know where that came from, but I got to do some investigating.